All right, welcome back to Chasing Rings. I know we took a little hiatus, brief week hiatus. What's up, fellas?
What's happening?
What's good?
What's
What's
happening,
good?
everybody?
Yeah, we're back and better than ever. Getting ready to get into some NFL draft preparation. But first, you know how we do.
Wait, what?
Check out what I got for y'all today. I hope y'all might know this, but I doubt y'all know this. So, everybody's making these comparisons between, Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders all the time. Obviously, both, drafted to play in the NFL, played MLB. Did you know that both of them were actually drafted by the Kansas City Royals?
What?
No.
Get out of
Wait,
here.
what?
Absolutely. I did not know that. They were both drafted by the Royals.
Wow. Well, where did Dion go? You remember?
He went in the baseball draft. I do not know
No,
in the baseball draft. NFL, he was the 5th pick by the Falcons. Right. And of course,
Bo Jackson
was one.
7, I think.
No, Bo was the first pick overall, but
Yeah.
he didn't. But he was.
Yeah, the Buccaneers picked him, but he didn't go.
Yeah, he wasn't going to go. He told them. 7th. No, he told them he was not going to play for them, but they picked him anyway. So he was like, "See you later."
And that's crazy. Two sport athletes. That must be who Kansas City liked. That might have told you something.
Yeah, yeah. I just happened to stumble across that. I wasn't like looking or anything. I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." But what you got, G?
Well, since we are looking at draft, and I'm doing all this research, and I came across the free agency. Who has the New York Jets locked down, right? And I was surprised they gave their long snapper guaranteed $1.1 million.
Wait,
on a $1.4 million. Oh yeah, on a $1.4 million contract. So I'm just
what? Just to snap a football?
Long snappers are pulling in that kind of money.
Apparently, I never heard of that.
For you figure how many plays in a game? That's not bad work right there.
No, it's not.
But I thought about it, and I'm just like, but those are some critical downs, though, because they can go sideways real quickly with a poor long snapper. So I get it after I thought about it.
Oh yeah, yep, very important job. What you got, big dude?
Okay, well, and I wonder, like I said, I know we were talking about the draft, and I know G's an Ohio State guy. I'm not, but we all know that in this draft, we're going to find out who some of the better players are altogether and people that we've heard about and read about. But did you know? Well, first of all, Ohio State in the last 5 years, they had a 59-10 record. They won, of course, the national championship in 2024. And on that team is one of the people that we're looking at to talk about in the draft, Caleb Downs, as Dr. Guru is one of his fans from Alabama. Well, the championship year, Caleb Downs got a 79-yard punt return against Indiana for a touchdown. But did you know, through all the other things that we think he can do, play slot corner and all those things, we didn't know he could return punts, but did you know of all those years and all those wins for 59 wins and 10 losses, it wasn't 5 years, but 10 years before for the last Ohio State person to get a return punt for a touchdown.
Wait,
10 years?
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the person was Jalen Marshall, almost to the day. One was November 23rd, 2015, and then November 22nd, 2025. So, and guess what? Also in Ohio Stadium and also against Indiana.
Interesting.
Wow.
Do you remember him, G? I don't even remember who that is.
No.
I don't remember.
I was hoping you'd enlighten me, G, because I was like, wow, I'll never get that one again.
Yeah, I'm
I don't remember that person.
But all those players, all their success, top 5 all those years, I mean, top 10 and championship year. So
Wow.
Interesting. All right. Well, that was.
Wait, what?
Let's get into some news now. Some of the top headlines. The WNBA is bargaining, trying to get a new CBA, collective bargaining agreement, and they've set a deadline for March 10th to try to get that settled. Because I don't know if you guys knew this or not, they have two new teams coming this year, so they want to have this done in time so they can have the expansion draft, obviously get their schedule together and get through free agency. But the two teams are the Toronto Tempo and the Portland Fire. So that'll be interesting for those markets. Of course, Toronto and Portland have NBA teams, so it makes sense that you would try to have WNBA teams in the NBA markets. So this two sides still don't see eye to eye on basically the revenue sharing. That's a big sticking point here. And apparently they provided housing to the players at one point, but that was not submitted when the league put in this most recent proposal. So that's also one of the sticking points. So we'll see what happens with that. So they have a couple of weeks to get that straight so they can get their season started on time. This next one is absolutely perplexing to me. Pacquiao Mayweather 2 on September 19th.
Yeah.
Why in the world are either of these? I mean, I'm sure someone, if not both, may need money, but other than, I mean, come on, man. Come on.
Yeah.
makes no sense.
I don't get it.
That's not even coming out of retirement. That's dropping into the what is it? Into the bottomless hole. Both of them.
Yeah, apparently, I think it's going to be broadcast on Netflix, but whatever.
Broadcast on Netflix.
Yeah, not interested. Hard pass.
If I can find it for free, I'll watch it.
Yeah, I'd watch it for free.
Couldn't do it.
I'm not paying.
But you know the thing about it, boxing is in a pretty good space right now. I don't know if you guys are keeping up with it, but they have some good young fighters, some good young champions. Certainly Crawford looks like he's going to retire, or if he hasn't retired already. But you know, boxing is doing pretty well for itself with guys like Shakur Stevenson and Tank Davis. So, you know, maybe Mayweather just wants a little bit of that shine, maybe a little jealous of that shine. Who knows? But boxing is
I've been watching it, and the undercards have actually been really good. Maybe the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So,
I haven't.
You know, I mean, I honestly don't watch it enough to know all the names. I should probably start doing that more because it has gotten good. Mixed martial arts to me hasn't. It's going the other direction to me.
Yeah, it had been years since I watched boxing, but definitely Crawford piqued my interest in it again, and then I started watching some of the other young guys and some good young fighters out there. So, don't
sleep on the women fighters, man. They have been some of the most brutal fights, and I'm like, these women can box, and it's actually very competitive. So I would say give it a chance if you haven't watched them.
Yeah, I think Clarissa Shields fought recently, I believe, if not maybe over the weekend,
she just
perhaps
fought Sunday or Monday.
Yeah, I thought it was within the last few days, but I saw that she won again. Looked like it was a pretty competitive fight too, from the highlights that I saw.
At the beginning, it was until her opponent, I forget her name. You know, you could tell she started gassing out. But at the beginning, it was actually the first few rounds are actually really good to me.
Yeah, looked like there was a lot of action. So, kudos to the women doing their thing in the warrior sport. What would news be without college football and somebody filing a lawsuit against the NCAA for a 7th year of eligibility? This is the Virginia quarterback Chandler Morris is looking for a 7th year of eligibility. His claim is that the NCAA disregarded his mental health documentation that Virginia submitted on his behalf. So they denied his eligibility waiver, so he is now suing them. But we will see what happens with that case, with the other multitude of cases that seem to be out there. And I'm not familiar with him, but he was the starting quarterback this year. They did win the ACC championship, so I guess he was halfway decent.
Well, it's the
Move.
ACC.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything else. I'll let you add that comment to it. I was
I
going
mean,
to
I'm
leave
an
it.
ACC lover. I grew up in the ACC. You can see where I'm from. But yeah, come on.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. And moving into the NFL, there were a lot of transactions today. We'll kind of, I guess, probably touch on those as we get through each team. But this was an interesting development. The league is considering letting replay officials throw flags for non-football calls that were missed on the field. So, for example, if you remember the Super Bowl, Josh Jobe got into it with Stephon Diggs. They were saying like a play like that. Even the broadcasters during the game were saying that that probably should have been a penalty on Jobe. But that's the type of play that they're saying the replay officials should be able to, I guess, I don't know how they're going to do the flag, dial down and tell them to throw a flag and then they call it or whatever. But also, before I throw it to you guys for your comments, the league is discussing replay officials also looking at calls that were missed, other types of plays that may have been missed as penalties. So there's a lot that we could probably say about that. And I'm sure we'll get back to that as a big part of the show itself, as that develops and the league, implements its changes for the upcoming season. But big dude, what do you think about the replay officials being able to get involved in calling penalties?
Well, I understand it and I respect it. And perhaps it may have its place, but it just seems to be too many things all over the place with some of these changes, especially when you have added an official on the field. Now, you got two people in the back now. So I'm wondering how two people in the back, and where the white hat is and the other person in the field. I wonder how they don't see a whole lot. And I'm wondering, when we start talking about how much we're doing to really, I don't want to say cheapen the game, but you try to improve it, you try to make it safe. By the same token, we've got to look at these official crews who are missing these critical calls, these things that are tremendously egregious, like that particular call. We all know what was going on. The game was over. And then when the game's over, a lot of the officials, they don't pay attention like they should. And guess what? If they don't, they should be punished like they should. So I would say this deserves a lot more study to figure out what's going to happen with it, because it just seems like at some point, and, with regard to the second thing that you mentioned, with them coming in again, why is the person running the game have a white hat? He has a white hat because he's in charge or she's in charge of the game. Okay, right now we're saying the replay officials, if we do all this, they're really in charge of the game and all the circumstances and a good part of the outcome. Because one thing I understand about officiating is an official should never make themselves that much of a part of the game. I think by us allowing this, the officials make themselves too much of a part of the game, especially the replay official, and they don't give the officials on the field their due and administering the game as they can. So that's where I come from with it. I think it needs more study, and I don't think it's this year.
Yeah, what about you, G? What are your thoughts on this?
I understand the need for accuracy on those particular calls. I guess on the first point, non-football plays, and they're taking a look at that and determining fouls. I think I can get with that. That should probably be less disruptive. If it involves yardage, it's kind of like in Formula One, you can have an infraction, but then when you go into pit, that's when you serve your infraction time. So you have to stay a few more seconds. So it may happen, and it says something that's a 5-yard penalty. You just add it on the next possession. So that one I can see. The second one though, like if there was just either a bad call or a truly horrible no call, I don't know where you draw that line, especially in real time. I don't know how the flow of the game will work. I don't know. I agree with Steph definitely on the second one that it needs to really be studied. I'd even, you can even play flag football and practice it out and kind of see what will happen if you implemented that the second option, just to
Hmm.
see how it would work. But definitely, I think improving calls, improving refereeing, which that was an issue. I think that's always a good thing to consider it. So yeah,
Hmm.
this one, the second part, I definitely think it needs more study.
Yeah, I think for the only thing that I'm really worried about is the time. We already take a lot of time during these games for the replays,
Hmm.
the booth reviews. So my thing is that there has to be a certain time element here. So I think the Super Bowl example with Diggs and Joe, that was caught pretty quickly, and I think the announcer saw it. I think they showed the replay a couple times, and the refs were actually right there. I think you could catch something like that quickly, but in terms of somebody getting the call down, I guess you'd have to communicate to the officials on the field that, hey, we saw a penalty, and getting it down in a timely manner is what I would be worried about, the process of doing this. And
Hmm.
also going back to that Super Bowl example, in a sport like football, some of that, and I'm not saying it shouldn't have been a penalty, but some of that jostling after the play type stuff, that's kind of part of the game. And are we going to get too nitpicky with those type of after the play type of calls? Would kind of be one of my concerns there. But we'll see what
Hmm.
they come up with. I agree, big dude. I think some more research needs to be done. So hopefully they take care with this one and don't add something else to the game that's going to make these games even longer. I think the games overall this year went at a pretty good pace
Yeah.
for the most part compared to previous years. So I hope we can keep it where it is. The last news note, obviously, the final thing here is the NFL scouting combine starts on Thursday in Indianapolis, and this kind of gives teams that one final time to assess our draft prospects moving into the upcoming draft towards the end of June here. So, that'll be interesting to see what some of the results of that is, who's able to elevate themselves. There's always some people who are ranked highly that kind of disappoint in terms of their times and all of the other dumb tests that I feel like they put you through. If you haven't proven what you can do by this point, um, I don't know. I just feel like this whole auction block type of scenario always kind of bothers me a little bit, but I get it, I suppose. But that starts on Thursday. So that's a nice segue into today's show. Today, we'll begin our breakdown of all 32 NFL teams and provide our analysis of how they should approach the draft towards the end of April here. We're going to begin with the NFC East. We'll do a couple of teams each episode. We'll work our way all the way through the league until we end up towards the end here sharing our mock drafts and planning to do a live stream the day of the draft. So let's get into it with those Dallas Cowboys. this this past season, the Cowboys brought in Schottenheimer as head coach, Brian Schottenheimer, to replace Mike McCarthy, who's now the Steelers head coach. But Dallas ended up not faring well with the replacement of coaches this past year either, finishing 7-9-1 on the season and finishing second in the NFC East. And again, second season in a row not making the playoffs. So another tumultuous season there. They started off basically went 1-2-1, and after their bye week, week 10 I think was their bye week. They had a pretty good win streak going there. I think they won 3 games in a row, and people started to think, people started talking playoffs and Cowboys in the same sentence. But again, it fizzled out. They ended up basically losing 4 of their last 5 games and just did not go out on a good note. But some of the things they did do some good things in the offseason, I suppose. They did get George Pickens, who had a monster year, really made their offense explosive. They were ranked high in a lot of the offensive categories. But the big blockbuster move was Micah Parsons. We had heard that saga all summer. And then literally the week before the opening game against the Eagles, their arch rival, they traded, which still to this day, don't know what Jerry's on, but they traded him to Green Bay for Kenneth Clark and I think a 2026 and 2027 first round picks. And then they got a midseason acquisition of Quinnen Williams from the Jets for a couple of picks and a player. So again, their second year in a row without playoffs. But the interesting thing about the Cowboys is their offense was explosive all year. Their defense was really the issue. They were 7th in points scored, but they were dead last on defense. That's a problem. Dak had a good season for the most part. The offense was almost unstoppable in some of the games that I watched, to be quite honest with you. There wasn't much you could do with the offense. Dallas's offense kind of stopped themselves at times. That was the only thing that really stopped them. Javonte Williams had a nice season, who coincidentally, they just re-signed him. He was one of their big free agents, and they just signed him, I think, a day or two ago. So we can cross him off the list of players that they needed to keep. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with Pickens. They're probably going to franchise George Pickens, which he won't be happy with. But the word is
like
that
they did.
Did they do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So they'll be working on
yeah.
They'll be working on a long-term deal with him. And I know that they're talking about franchising their kicker, who, one of the best kickers in the league. I always try to get him in fantasy. So, but ultimately Dallas couldn't stop anyone. That's what it boils down to. They lost Michael Parsons. They lost Trayvon Diggs to injuries for a few games. Deron Bland was injured for a few games. And, of course, the unfortunate passing of Marshawn Kneeland during the season, which I'm sure also took its toll on the Cowboys, not just from his contributions to the team, but just the mental toll that takes. But so this is a critical offseason for them. And when you really look at what they have going on, so they have 21 free agents. Well, now 20 if they took care of Pickens. But they rank 30th on the cap. They're like minus 26.7 million in cap space. So they have a lot of players that they need to get rid of. A lot of the players that I noticed who were free agents are second, third level players. So they probably let some of them go. Not really high salaries, but $1 million and $2 million each player starts to add up. But they have 2 first-round picks in this draft, but they have a really tough schedule this upcoming year. They play 8 games against playoff teams, and one is the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Not to mention the NFC East should be much tougher. I think all the teams in the NFC East will probably be improved. So if we look at going into the draft for them, their biggest need, you see, is predominantly defense. They could use another wide receiver, depending on what they do. But it looks like if they've already tendered Pickens as franchise, they'll have him for at least another year. So that's not a pressing priority right now, assuming that they'll sign him to a long-term contract. Big dude, I'll start with you. In your analysis of Dallas and their needs, what do you think? How do you think the Cowboys should approach this first round of the draft? And they have, 2 picks there. They have the 12 and the 20, and they have so many defensive needs. Obviously, you can't get it all with 1 or 2 picks. But what do you think they should hone in on in terms of those specific needs? And do you have any particular players that they should be eyeing at that 12 spot specifically?
Well, I think it's good that, number one, it's good that Dallas has 2 first-round picks. That's number one. To get the people that they need are going to be very difficult. Obviously, and I think I'm sure G has a couple of these in his back pocket as Ohio State. I think it's time for them to figure out, if something happens and maybe they even figure out to move up and I would say try to make a trade to see if they can get Arvell Reese from Ohio State or Styles, because their edge game, I think they can get it back. They got to figure out what they're going to do. I think one other person, I don't know if you mentioned him, and he's still relatively young, Jadeveon Clowney. What are they going to do to bring him back? But if they bring him back, you need some youth coming out from Ohio State. Reese is an edge player. And getting Styles back, even though Styles is young, Styles could be the person that starts the leadership that they had, especially with Micah Parsons. And Now, I was 50-50 about moving Micah Parsons to the edge from linebacker. But even though Micah Parsons' career seemed to have taken off with him moving to the edge, Dallas did not recover really from trying to put anybody at linebacker. They even took a safety and moved them to the linebacker. So those are the main people. Also at wide receiver, somebody else to be there as a third wide receiver. It wouldn't be bad to put somebody else in there like I can't remember the kid's name from USC that ended up being the Bolitnikov award winner.
Makai Lemon.
I think he's
Makai Lemon.
Yes. I think he wouldn't be a bad person to be a third one because the thing about it is, even though he won the Bolitnikov award, he's not up there with all the other rest of the people. Now, I think that's going to also depend, and we'll get to it later. Obviously, I'm not going to get into it just yet until it's our time to, but the Giants do draft at 5th, so it's going to depend upon who might fall to the Cowboys, depending upon whether the Giants, at that time do the same thing. So we'll see who they draft, but I think because they are where they are at 12th, I think they ought to go ahead and do the defense if they could. I would stick with defense altogether. I think they gave up the most passing touchdowns as well. I'm not sure how many corners is it. See, because they're at 10, they're going to have some people that fall to them. So I'm not sure who all those other people are going to be. But obviously, if they're able to, if Caleb Downs is there, we mentioned him, Caleb Downs, I think, would be an outstanding safety. Not only is Caleb Downs a strong hitter, Caleb Downs is also a person that can play that nickel corner slot as well. So that's pretty much what I'd say about what they need to do or where they need to start, and then find out, who the other folks that fell down to around the 20th. There's nothing there for the offensive line that looked pretty good. Could always be a little bit better, but that's what I say. Caleb Downs, the young man, Lemon from USC, and the edge, if they can get Arvell Reese or they can get Sonny Styles, to bring in kind of almost like the way the Eagles brought in, the Georgia guys. I think the Ohio State guys coming into someone's team is going to make a difference.
Great. Positive Ohio State talk leading into G. Just what we need. G, what are your thoughts on the Cowboys and their approach?
So anyway, I can't remember who I was watching, but they were projecting like 4 Ohio State players going in the first 10. So yeah, Ohio State will likely be pretty deep. I honestly don't think Caleb Downs is going to make it down to Dallas. I mean, New York Jets would be stupid to pass up on him, and they need that, and they could use him. So, but anyway, but Arizona specifically needs a safety, but still, I think New York or Arizona, one of them are going to pick him. He's not going to be there. But so this is what I'm thinking about Dallas. So just looking at how they did on offense and defense, is pretty clear the defense is really the issue. So I see that so far during free agency, they threw millions at 2 linebackers, 4 edges, 2 running backs, and 1 right guard. And so I think they have. Let me make sure I have this correct. They have a right guard at maybe 150, well, 900,000 this season. So then they have another right guard, 1.1 million, 900,000. So I think that right side, they probably fill that out to a degree. They have a left tackle that they're going to pay 1.1. So I would say maybe get that left tackle, just to protect for a longer period of time. I mean, you can always improve at that area. And I'm only saying this because of how far down they are. But then after that, man, they really should focus on that defense. And I don't know how much they're going to be able to pull that off with a 25 million over the cap. I know there's discussions about Dak and CD maybe doing some restructuring. I don't know if Pickens. I don't know if you can restructure because that's 28 million. So I don't know if there's any talk unless he plans on extending. Then you probably can restructure before the season, but I don't know. But nevertheless, I would focus on. I would try to get an offensive tackle, the best one available at that time. But and if you don't like that, then I would go defense. And what I would be looking at those defensive players that when you look at their college career, you've seen progression at a decent clip. So you're seeing that good production as a defensive player. You're looking at the quality blocks. You're looking at the running back stops, so on and so forth. And picks and use because you're not gonna have much money, so you really use it to get those rookies that may be able to be next man up in a year or two, and maybe expand your running back depth. I think about the New York Giants, and this is what made me think about it when Scatterboo went down. How did their running game? How was that impacted? And then we just kind of noticed the importance of running backs in this postseason. So Dallas has two, but I don't think it hurts to have another running back that again you've seen that have progressed over their time in college, that you can come in, they can get there in that third spot and you get trained up. So that's kind of how I would approach it. Oh,
Yeah,
Dak and CD Lamb's contract, 37% of the cap.
Yeah, and that's the thing that some of these NFL teams have who have top 3 and top 5 guys. They absorb a lot of that money, and it's hard. I mean, you can restructure a few times, but it's still hard because so much money is already on the table with that. There's only so many ways you can restructure, and I think Dak has restructured before. But you make a great point when you have a handful of players gobbling up your cap. That's rough.
Yep.
That's rough, but yeah, you guys both make some really good points in terms of their approach. I think for me, when I looked at Dallas, and unfortunately, we get stuck watching Dallas a lot on national TV, whether they're good or bad. So I've seen them more times than I care to see them. But in seeing them so many times, the one thing that I did notice about them, as bad as that defense was, Dallas is not that far away. And I say that because on offense, they're pretty set. I mean, they were first in passing, 6th in passing touchdowns, 9th in rushing. They were pretty good on 3rd down conversions, and they were at top 3 and 4th down conversions. So their offense, like we said earlier, was explosive. They seemed to stall out on their own at times.
Right.
But offensively, I feel like they're pretty set. I do agree with you, G, about them. It wouldn't hurt for them to get another wide receiver. But in looking at this draft, I think that you can get a wide receiver late because this is a really deep wide receiver draft. Certainly there's some studs at the top of this. I mean, you got Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, this Jordan Tyson kid from Arizona State, and Denzel Boston from Washington. Those are guys that are probably going to go in the first round, but there's still a really deep wide receiver pool in this draft. So I think we all agree here. I'm going defense here. And for them, last in passing yards, and they don't create any turnovers. They're 29th in interceptions, 25th in fumbles recovered. They got to get some pressure on the quarterback to create some havoc. Because I think one of the things that we learned in the playoffs is that if you can put some pressure on quarterbacks, it makes your secondary look really good. Because you don't have to cover for so long. You know what I'm saying? Seattle's probably the best example of that. Not saying that their DBs aren't good, on their own. But, man, if you have somebody getting to the quarterback so fast, you only got to cover for so long. So I would definitely say defense here. I think you both, and especially UG, makes a really good point about where they're drafting and what's going to be there. A lot of these guys are going to be gone. Reese is going to be gone. Downs, Bank. Those guys are going to be gone at 12. So for me, I had the guy from Texas Tech, David Bailey, the edge rusher, who I really like a lot. I have Dallas trying to get him at 12. If he's still available, he should be. Unless if he's not available, that's going to be a reach for somebody. And one of those other guys is going to be available. David Bailey from Texas Tech. He's the edge, 6'3", 250.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like his game, and he should be there at 12 for them. If he's not there at 12, then that means, like I said, somebody reached and somebody else, they'll end up getting probably a better pick. But for what Dallas needs, the only other edge rusher rated higher than him is Ruben Bain, who I doubt Ruben Bain will be available at the 12th pick. So They should be okay. For that 20th pick, I went back and forth with that. Should they trade it? Should they the 20th pick? Because they have those 2 picks in the first round.
Yeah.
And I think there's enough there defensively for them. I really like the Cassius Howell kid out of Texas A&M, and another edge rusher. He's 6'3" or 6'4", 245. I really like him a lot as well, and he's actually starting to move up on some draft boards. So I think I would look at him because after that, the only other defenders you have in the top 20 is you have the edge kid, TJ Parker from Clemson, who I don't know a whole lot about. I didn't see Clemson a lot this year, and I honestly don't know the name that well. I'm sure we'll learn more about him, over the next few months as the draft approaches. But I really like Bailey and Howell for the Cowboys, maybe in that first round. Possibly consider moving up. I would say maybe see if you can take that 20 pick and turn it into something. But if they do that, I mean, what are you going to do with that? Because Reese is going to be gone because they do need a linebacker, but he's the only linebacker ranked in the top 20 here. And he's definitely not going to be there. And are you going to be able to move up 16 spots? That's a big Dallas going to give up. They give up that they have to give up that pick, probably some money that they do not have, or some players which they probably don't really have.
So, you know what? Here's the interesting thing, and I guess I'll go ahead and do my wait what because it actually works into this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
The 5th and 6th rounds tend to have gems, and everybody knows it. And they have these 5th and 6th round picks just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
I look at Tennessee, or even particularly Tennessee. I look at them and I'm like, Tennessee could probably do some quick damage, particularly with a defensive-minded coach. You could probably make good use of, getting rid of that 4th pick and getting those 2 in the later rounds forward. What do you think?
I thought about that because that's who their trade partner would be. But, man, who's going to probably be available at that point? Because I had the Titans taking Reese, and I'm not giving up that to go down and maybe get a few more late-round picks. I know I could probably get a generational player. I'm probably not going to take that chance. If I'm Tennessee or Arizona, I'm probably keeping my spot just because they need so much. But in interest, that's a great question, OG, because who I do like to possibly do that. What about Cleveland?
Yeah,
why wouldn't Cleveland necessarily be a good trade partner? Because their defense is one of the top defenses in the league. So let's say if they didn't make any defensive moves, they're good there. They need an offensive lineman. That's a possibility for them, but you could probably get an O-line and possibly moving down. I'm trying to look at my rankings here. You can probably get an O-line.
Yeah, you could get Fano from Utah.
That's exactly what I was just looking at, big dude.
Yeah. You could get
Fano. Solid.
You could get Caden Proctor. You could get Caden Proctor. You could get Lomu from Utah. There's going to be a few. That looks pretty deep position for this draft, actually. So, I mean, because I would have Cleveland picking an offensive lineman based on what their needs are. I wouldn't necessarily focus on the defense. So, I think you make a real good point about Dallas finding a trade partner up in those top few picks there and trying to hit a home run with a defender.
I think Cleveland actually, now that you talk it through, would probably be one of the better trading partners with Dallas, actually.
And let's see.
Because this
I'm looking
this
here.
offensive line class is pretty deep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not bad. And the other kid from Penn State, we'll see. The Vega. Well, I'll say this fully goes by Vega Ione. He's pretty solid too. And some of them mock drafts.
He's a pass protection like specialist, which is something that Cleveland would need.
Yeah.
Because you can you figure if they get Dallas's 20th pick, you can still get what you want because that's still a good pick for what their needs are. And Dallas has a 4th round and 2 5th-round picks. I would entertain that call if I was Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. That was a good one.
Saying and Dallas, I forgot Dallas doesn't have any picks. They may even want to think about that. They're between 1 and 4, they have no picks because of the trades they made from 2 and 3.
Exactly. And if you don't get what you want with these 2 picks, you're SOL. Yeah. So they really need to make it happen with whatever movements they're going to make, either hit home runs with those 2 picks or try to trade up at that 20th pick because they don't draft again until the 4th round, the 112th pick. So, I mean, to me, if they can't move up into the top 5, I probably would keep it but you got to go top 5. And I'm looking at the Saints, possibly the Saints would be a possible other partner, but I think Cleveland I'd make that call to Cleveland. All right, let's look at the G-men here. All right, so they had an interesting season as well. A lot going on there. When isn't there a lot going on in New York? In their 4th season under Brian Daboll, they end up going 4-13, and they finished last in the division. What's interesting about the Giants, though, they had 6 losses of less than 1 score or less. 2 of them in overtime. So that's almost half their losses. They were in those games, and those games could have gone either way. And they had 2 really good wins at Philly. And I shouldn't say at Philly. They beat Philly in New York, and they beat the Chargers at home. And that West Coast trip to New York, that never goes well for those teams. But they went through 3 quarterbacks this year. At the end of the day, I think they may have found their quarterback in Jackson Dart. Dart just needs to learn to protect himself if he's going to have any longevity in this league. But he looks like he's got the goods, coming out of Ole Miss. That may be becoming a little quarterback factory now. And of course, they had Cam Scatterboo, who was doing serious work, gave them a 1-2 punch before his injury. And then you had Malik Neighbors, who, unfortunately for the Giants, got hurt in Dart's first game. So we never really got to see the 3 Musketeers together for an extended period of time. So they have Malik Neighbors to look forward to returning. And I don't know if you saw any of the social media stuff. Malik looks ready. Looks like he's in the best shape of his life. Looks real. Mm-hmm. So I think he'll be ready. The game that probably epitomizes the Giants season is the Broncos game. You're up by, what were they up? 18 points in the 4th quarter with less than 7 minutes left. And they were playing really good ball. And that's the week after they had beaten Philly. So they had all this momentum coming in, and they played like they did against Philly for 3.5 quarters and could not close the deal. And that was kind of the epitome of their season and all those close losses that they had. Ultimately, Brian Daboll was fired after week 10 when they lost to the Bears. And at that point, the Giants were 2-8, and the season was pretty much done. And it really didn't seem like they were a 2-8 team up to that point because they had looked so competitive in many of the games they played, especially after Dart got into the lineup. But even with Jameis Winston, they looked good, at times. So, but offseason for them, obviously, and we talked about this in our previous episodes, talking about the coaching carousel, they got a big get by getting John Harbaugh as their coach. I think he'll bring some stability to the organization, probably something the Giants haven't had since Tom Coughlin. As much as he was such a stickler and, really a hard coach to play for, I think the Giants need that type of coach. One of their issues is they have even more free agents than Dallas had. They have 27 free agents. and they only have 7.8 million in cap space, and they're ranked 19th in terms of available cap space. And they have that same schedule. That NFC East schedule is going to be tough. They play 7 playoff teams from this last year, including the Super Bowl champs and the runner-ups in the NFC. So they play Seattle and the Rams as part of their schedule. So again, I'm gonna throw it to you first, big dude. The G-men. What are you looking at with the G-men? I feel like they got needs. Got a lot of needs. I feel maybe even more than they're listing, but.
Well, I mean, everyone talks about, certainly trying to find someone opposite of Malik Neighbors is a top priority, and I would agree with that to a certain extent. But that hasn't beat anyone, as you said. Well, what is it that's missing when you give up an 18-point lead? Usually, it's leadership, and it's leadership on defense. When you're up by 18, kind of like some people say in big games. Don't fall for it. You know what we got to do to finish. You're going to need some other people coming in. And I would say, again, even though now this is the 5th pick that the Giants have, and they really have to do well because the Giants go from the 5th pick to the 37th pick to no picks in the next round after that. So I would say for sure I'd look at offensive line. I mean, they have a person, I think his name is Alu Munar. Jermaine, he's 31. Then you got this guy Van Roten, Greg Van Roten. He's 35. Those guys are either going or they're going. So you got to look at the O-line. There's targets and places from some of the people that we mentioned earlier. I know G mentioned the young man from Utah. You have him. And then you have Emmanuel Pragon from Oregon. And I don't know if anybody is up for moving up. I guess what's going to happen is if the Giants could, I don't want to say mess up the whole first round, but they will strongly or adversely affect that first round, I think, if they take an O-lineman, for sure. That will throw off some other things. And, of course, if the Jets are crazy enough not to get Caleb Downs and he falls there, obviously Caleb Downs is the dream pick. But trying to get a target, I think that's what the Giants have to look at. So when you look at the fact that you have 5 picks and in between there you have 30, you don't have another pick for 32 picks, you have to really prioritize. I think that other target, you can still find it at 37, believe it or not. And I think for O-line, you might be able to find them in the teens. You might be able to find them in the 20s. I don't know if you're going to be able to find, you'll get a good O-lineman in the 30s, but not your top one that's going to replace, especially anybody you have on the edge, like Jermaine E. we'll call him. So there's, the Giants have to decide whether they're going to re-sign this 31-year-old dude, or look at what the upside of a new person coming in is. And I think that the Giants needs to continue to get young, and then if they really want to go for it, we know that Harbaugh is a defensive coach, and he has coached all kind of people. He's coached Ed Reed. He's coached some tremendous safety, Kyle Hamilton. So those are the types of people that he can look for. Except this is a bigger pick than the Cowboys because they don't have anything else left. And I would say, even as a inside backers, you got also the young man from Texas, number 0, Anthony Hill, and if Arvell Reese, of course, is there, which I'm not sure, it might not be a bad idea to have him on one side and Abdul Carter on the other. That would be quite a duo. But you got to be able to move the football. You have to. You can't just give Scatterboo. This isn't 1985. Giving Scatterboo 30-something carries. And if you're going to do it, you got to have the people that can grind it out with you. So that's pretty much where I'm at. I think on the interior defensive line, they need somebody also to match Dexter Lawrence. And I think that you might be able to get away with a lot of that other stuff if you shore up the middle of your defense or offensive line. But I think Offensive line, since they have those people that are free agents, a 31-year-old guy and a 35-year-old guy, I think you got to replace your offensive line. I think defense, you'll find the people, the players, and the athletes, and Harbaugh will mold them into what they need to mold them to play on their defense.
Yeah, I think Harbaugh might be an X factor for this team, definitely. G, what are your thoughts on the Giants' strategy for the draft?
So yeah, they're kind of mid on defense, on passing as well as in receiving defense, but they're horrible at run defense. So like dang near last. And then on offense, they're in that bottom third on passing with receptions, but they were top 5 in running. So I think that if I were the coach, and I'm looking at where their money has been, and they really put out a good bit of money for the right side of their line, inside linemen on defense. And then they have like 2 tight ends, some DBs that they put like several $100,000 on. I think I would focus on the left side of the offensive line. I think that would be my top priority. Or getting a receiver would be really, really important, I think. Defensive line, I mean, if it's there, that would be great. Particularly someone who can plug up the middle to kind of help with that run defense. So I would definitely go the left side of the offensive line, plug up the middle on defense, and get another receiver.
Yeah, the Giants have an interesting predicament as well, because that 5th pick sounds really good, but if you're looking at the draft boards, what they need is lower.
Mm-hmm.
And they might want to think about money in this situation, because what is it once they're out of the top 10, that the salary drops, I believe, right? I know when you're out of the first round, but I think top 10, and a lot of what they need is past that 10th pick. However, with that 5th pick, the players that are possibly sitting there still, I have them picking either Caleb Downs or Carnell Tate. Carnell Tate is a little bit of a reach because he's not rated that high, but he's on the periphery. On the list that I'm using, they have him as the ninth best prospect overall. He's the first wide receiver. So that could justify that pick. They do need a wide receiver, so that could justify them reaching back, since they need a wide receiver to get the top wide receiver in the draft. I think you could justify that. But
they can wait till next year. Think about who's coming out next year
for a wide receiver. Well, so then that means they tank, because you're gonna have to be you have to be the number 1 pick next year to get him, probably, or at least 2 or 3, because somebody will probably, you got to figure it'll be Cleveland or the Jets again, and they're gonna pick a quarterback most likely. So you're right. If they could tank and they could end up with 3. But yeah, your boy's gonna be out of there.
I think you're right.
It sounds good, but he's gonna be out of there.
When you think it through, nah.
But I just feel like with that pick, I mean, they're gonna fill a need if they pick Downs or Tate. But I guess the question I have for you, G, being an Ohio State expert, can Downs play corner? Because from what I see, that he said he's pretty flexible. Like, he could come down in the box and he has linebacker skills. They said that he also has some cover skills, but obviously safety. They said he's like a Kyle Hamilton, kind of sees everything, can do everything back there. And the reason I asked that, because I think the Giants are set at safety. Mm-hmm. But man, I wouldn't want to pass up Downs, and I believe the gentleman who is their safety cannot play corner.
So here's the thing with him. I definitely think that he has the IQ, the physicality to play cornerback. So I just want to put that out there. 205 pounds though. That can come into play. on certain downs, certain types of downs that can definitely come into play. Honestly, I wouldn't run from his side to be quite honest, because I think he makes up the size with his intelligence of the game. If
Oh
you
my
watch him
God.
play, so I
Absolutely.
think he's intelligent enough to make the plays with minimizing putting himself in harm's way. Does that make sense?
Oh, it absolutely makes sense. So
Yeah,
this is the
absolutely.
thing I'm thinking, looking at what I'm looking at for these other teams ahead of them. So, I had them getting downs, and I think both of you may have mentioned, I know Big Dude, you mentioned that the Jets would be crazy for not picking downs. And I have the Jets taking Bane. If the Jets go downs, Bane's the Jets pick could dictate some things. Because if
Yes.
they take Caleb Downs, now you pushing Bane down. Some of these guys may be available at that fifth pick that I don't have being available at that fifth pick. So I'd take Bane if he was available, but I just don't think he's going to be waiting for them. And I don't think Caleb's going to be there. I think Tate will be there though. And looking at the Giants, they were 21st in passing offense. Everything else on offense, they were fine. 5th in rushing, 10th and third down conversions, 4th in rushing touchdowns. Passing was the big aspect. And they're 24th in passing touchdowns.
Mm.
And a lot of that's going to be attributed to Malik Neighbors being out. Of course, they had basically Isaiah Hodgins. It's kind of one of your main receivers at that point. No disrespect to the young man, but you're talking about a second level wide receiver and not having a true superstar one available the whole season. Now you get Neighbors back, and if you pair Neighbors with Tate,
oh wow,
problems.
Yeah, I think people are sleeping on Tate in a lot of ways.
I don't think so.
Because he's a route runner supreme. If you think about it.
You think they're sleeping on
Tate? Having him at ninth, I was kind of like skeptical about that. I'm like, I think he's kind of higher than that, but based on the
rankings
needs are.
But you know why they are, though, G? They're falling in love with these offensive tackles, and I'm not picking. My offense would have to be desolate for me to take an offensive tackle at 5th or 6th. Like I would have to have nobody.
It's just the only thing I say about the Giants is they're going to get hit hard by free agency. It's almost like they're getting hit hard by free agency, but I hope this is a good expression to use on here, but they'd almost have to be kissed on the lips by free agency also.
Yeah, you're right. And that's kind of one of the things that we need. And that's something we need to circle back to. We need to circle back to that because none of us touched on that other end of this. But I want to also circle back to, and I made a note, Big Dude, Jermaine E. for the Giants. It looks like they plan on re-signing him.
Okay.
Which is interesting. So if they plan on re-signing him, I'm pretty sure they're probably not going to take an offensive lineman. But that Greg Van Roten, he's out of there. He's definitely out of there.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens.
Okay. I'm confused. For some reason, I thought I saw that they had re-signed him. You're saying that they haven't?
They have. He's corrected. Yeah, he's giving me the correct that they have re-signed him.
Yeah, I'm saying that they're planning that was the plan.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, because I
wasn't
rid of
Van Roten.
Right. I wasn't sure if they were going to for sure. That's why I said, and we hadn't gotten to the free agency yet. I didn't want to talk out of term about free agency just yet. I didn't know where to bring that across.
No such thing as talking out of turn on chasing rings, fellas. We talk when it comes up, man. We get where we gotta go.
Okay.
G, you said that you confirmed it. They signed Jermaine E.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. But I'm also looking at a website that is not showing them on the 2026 team. So I have to dig for that one.
Okay, because I didn't think that they signed him yet. But once I had identified all of their free agents, I haven't checked again since. So I don't know but I know that they didn't want to sign Van Roten. But the other thing that we didn't really get into is the possibility of these teams. Teams are starting to make their actions known, even though it's not official yet, who they're going to release and who's going to be available in this free agent market. For example, Kirk Cousins is going to be released on the 11th. Not that anybody cares, but Kirk
Right.
Cousins will. So they're starting to let people know. So that's the other thing that's going to dictate what some of these teams do as well. I mean, I think the stuff that we discuss, the teams that we discussed before the free agency period starts, are not going to. We're not going to have that same advantage of knowledge knowing who the free agents are going to be. But once we get to that point for the teams later on in this, we'll have a little bit more of an idea. So, but I think this is a good start for sure. I like the way you guys are thinking and, collectively how we're kind of looking at it and, giving some different perspectives. Because I always used to look at the draft like, man, why are you trading your fifth and sixth pick? But as I was going through this, I'm like, well, there's not anybody that I wanted this pick. So what can I get for it? So I get it now. I definitely get it.
It becomes currency at some point.
Absolutely. And you're picking a player just to pick them, and you don't, they're not going to be a fit, or you're not sure, you don't need them. Doesn't make any sense. So you might as well get something for it.
Right.
So anything else about either of these two teams in terms of the draft? I mean, I think they were fairly easy given the types of seasons. I mean, Dallas is obvious. They need defense. Like, basically take whoever's available on defense. Highest rated player on defense. We're picking them. The Giants, not so much, though, because they're mid in some areas on both sides of the ball. While I'm not advocating to take – when I first thought about this draft at all before we even planned to have these shows, I'm thinking I'm not taking a wide receiver in the first round. And, my boys need a wide receiver bad, but I'm not taking one in the first round. I don't want to take one because I think there are so many there, and you can get a wide receiver later on, and you might be able to get a wide receiver in free agency. So, I've been big. This season more than ever taught me the importance of that interior. If you can't beef up that interior, then you're not going to probably win a whole lot of games.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts on either of these teams?
No, just that the Giants really have to also shore up the run. I think they were like second in the league of giving up yards per game in rushing.
Right behind my boys. Right behind my boys.
Yeah. Who else, right?
Yeah.
And they really need to figure out too. You might have to take a chance on an interior person. You get a Jalen Carter type. Or somebody that can do both
New
of
York
them.
Giants, they're in an interesting place because looking at their current roster, they've spread their money around. I thought they spread it around pretty well. So they probably, they could re-sign some of those people. I thought some of them probably played pretty well, but if they don't, that's just going to open up a lot of good salary cap to do a lot of good things. So they're actually in an interesting place.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because I noticed that as well. Like $1 million here, $2 million there. Like they're not really paying anybody anything, but it adds up over time. So
now the only downside is that if these players are willing, to say, okay, we know we're going to go to New York for the play for the Giants. We know we're not going to always get top dollar. We better be winning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. And not some teams are able to parlay that and get lucky, getting guys cheap like that and winning something, but it doesn't happen too often. I think the better run franchises are able to negotiate that. Those franchises that draft well and take advantage of those rookie contracts, like the Eagles did an excellent job, I think, with that rookie class that'll be coming up. This will be their third year, I believe, right, big dude? That great class you brought in, and you got a Super Bowl out of that. See, that's how you draft, and that's how you take advantage of it. And you're not going to be able to keep everybody. So if you end up releasing people, you can live with that because you got a trophy in the case.
Yeah.
So all right. Join us next time. We'll finish up our NFC East draft preview with a look at the Philadelphia Eagles, which should be a spirited convo with our boy Big Dude and the Washington Commanders. All right. And until then, We will see you next time. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. See you next time. Oh, don't forget to follow us. We are now on IG and TikTok. So check us out there as well. Please follow us on there. Until then, see you later.